Hello everybody and welcome to IRL F1 Round 12, Season 13 here in Abu Dhabi. And today we have got another big race on our hands, because this is another championship decider here in Abu Dhabi. We saw it here last season with Alfioli and Edward Hart, and now we've got it again this season with... Wait, hang on. Alfioli and Brendan Glover. And this season we got it with Brendan Glover and Edward Hart. There you go, and get my names mixed up already. But that ended in dramatic fashion last season with the championship being decided by 7 points, and today we've got them separated by only 9 points coming into this race, and it's Edward Hart who is currently on top for the Mercedes team. Brandon sitting 9 points behind him, but this time we've got a third driver who's still mathematically in the mix, and that is this man right here sitting on provisional pole, Lewis Curtis, who's 21 points behind Edward Hart, meaning that he pretty much has to win, and Edward finishes below 8th. So it's a miracle needed for Lewis Curtis, but mathematically still possible. Not if he spins like that, however. Edward Hart been going strong this season, missing out a couple of races, getting lucky that Brandon Glover was unable to capitalise on that, and Brandon Glover also being unlucky in that sense that he wasn't able to capitalise on that. Incidents getting in the way, and little tricky substances making his life hard so far this season, poor Brandon. But he is 9 points behind, meaning that he has to win this race, and Edward Hart to finish 3rd or below for him, I think, without fastest lap, depending on the race wins, without Edward Hart getting fastest lap, I believe, without 3rd. So Brendan also got a task on his hands. Edward Hart, as long as he finishes above Brandon and above 4 points, then he has won this championship. So he is very much in the driving seat, but that doesn't mean Brendan Glover hasn't got a chance of glory at all, because Aston Martin right now sitting on top of the Constructors' Championship with 213 points. Red Bull only 15 points behind. However, his only hope for this race today, their hope today, is Jared Fosbury down in 6th position right now. So Jared needs to win, and Brendan and Edward need to crash and retire and burn for him to have any hope or any chance of himself succeeding in this race. I also see there's something in the chat that I cannot read because I'm not in the stream. So you know what, I'm going to back out and I'm going to read it and say hello to whoever it is. Hello Ethan Payne, how are you? There you go. Easy as you like. But also with a mathematical chance is Mercedes, 34 points behind Aston Martin this time round. So Brendan Glover and Karen Harrison very much in a strong position for this, as Alfioli hasn't been able to keep up his pace from last season into this one, into this new game. He's been finding it a bit tricky, currently down in 9th right now with 33 flat. I mean, he's probably spun or something on his lap, gone slowly, so it's not a true judgment. But so far this season just hasn't been able to match his teammate, who sets provisional pole to 23.1, 2/10 quicker than Lewis Curtis in 2nd. So Edward Hart looking strong and quick, almost a second quicker than his rival down in 3rd right now. So Brendan's got to get his head in the game and really try. We've got a new Abu Dhabi track though this time. Of course, there's been some adaptations to this circuit. Not always been the most fun, and most people probably prefer Brazil to be the final race this season, which we saw here last week, which proved some great racing, very entertaining little moments on track. But we returned to Abu Dhabi. That served us well last season. I was going to say last year, but it hasn't quite been that long. Last season, last game, proved some exciting, good racing, and I hope it can bring us that again with a side-by-side finish between Brandon and Alfie to the line. Alfie coming out on top to win the championship, but perfection. It's exactly what I needed, and I screamed the house down that day. But we've only got 12 drivers with us today, so hopefully they can all stay clean and stay together, if possible, if they just have constant side-by-side throughout the entire, however many laps we got, like 26, I think. If we just have that the entire time, I am happy, and I am not going to complain. But beggars can't be choosers. Only 12 people is going to prove his challenge. Bit of a task. Maybe a few safety cars will come and help us out, throw some spice into the mix, but safety cars aren't always the most exciting to watch, let's be honest. But as we come into the final section of qualifying, you can see some people coming in to change their tyres, ready for their final lap. A few people on out laps. There's a other Ferrari car, Sondre Sorhaug, the league's owner, the management of this league, pulling on to let his teammate through. I mean, Sondre again should be a quick driver, but has the consistency of a wet sponge. So the man sitting down in 10th, having lived up well and truly to his bottle hog name with his consistent, everlasting crashes. We're going to go on board with Lewis as he sets a fast lap as he already invalidates, gone wide into first corner. That's another thing on this track. Track limits can prove tricky, especially through the first sector. I find a few little chicanes, they cut here and there, isn't too dramatic. I mean, you can get away with it most part, but in the first sector, gone wide through turn 1, turn 2, sorry, 3, then can put you in a tricky situation later on in the race if you keep it up, if you can't keep up the consistency. So it's all down to the drivers to get it right. Here is on the prime overtaking opportunities down into the hairpin and into the kind of a chicane of sorts afterwards onto the second DRS straight. Again, quite hard to go side by side, I think, through the right turn after the hairpin, but still very much possible. And again, if you get late on the brakes here, another changed corner, if you can sneak up the inside, maybe sweep around the outside, but it's a bit more difficult into this flat right-hander where you have to get your braking point spot on to be able to get through this tight section. Another place that you don't really want to be side by side, to be honest, otherwise you may, I was about to say some very unfamily friendly things, but you know what I mean, you may end up in the wall, and that's no fun for anybody, especially yourself. But there you go, Lewis. I think he's going to try and go for another lap. You got Edward Hart on his outlap now, coming into the final section of qualifying. Kevin Harrison going to be giving his teammate a tow, I imagine. You can see him going down the straight right now. Lewis coming to the first corner, this time keeping it on the track. Coming round into turn 3 now, looking at a lot more. Oh wait, no, he's not even got his foot on the throttle. Okay, that's Lewis Curtis done then. I'm not very interested anymore. Kevin Harrison slowing down, just waiting for his teammates to catch up. I guarantee he is giving some tow down the main straight. Currently sat in 4th. Only just in front of Laggy behind him. I can't remember Laggy's name, unfortunately, so we're just going to have to deal with that, to be honest. But Lewis Curtis retiring from the session as well. That's his qualifying over. Brandon has to improve his time by over 7 tenths to be able to try and get into the top 2 onto those. To that front row of the grid. Wasn't coming hard to me today, but see, Brandon's still quite far behind Kevin. I mean, unless Kevin's going for it himself, not giving his teammate a tow, then there you go. Just slow down a little bit. I'm just keeping an eye on them, see what they do. I'm going to keep an eye on Edward, who's now onto his lap, coming into the hairpin now. Another crucial braking point, braking very late, getting hard on the brakes, staying in 3rd gear so he can keep that traction on the exit, and he executes it nicely. He's currently sat on a 23.1, almost a second quicker than his closest rival down in 3rd right now. So Edward Hart looking good. Very much in the driving seat, as ironic as that is, coming into this nice hard braking zone, a place where I've had a few incidents in my time, especially in this league. Legends won't forget, I'll say that much. But Edward looking strong so far, looking very, very quick and almost untouchable. But Brandon, let's see if he can unlock something new as he goes 300ths of a second quicker on this final fast lap. Qualifying is over. This is his only chance, and this is again incredibly tricky section. Very, very technical, very, very precise, especially on the brakes. Very demanding too on the tyres, so tyre wear could also prove to be a very important factor. Laggy has managed to get a 23.9 going in front of Brandon, but Brandon will be finishing his lap very, very soon. You can see Kevin's given Brandon a tow already. Edward Hart says a 23 flat. Now it's all down to Brandon. How much can he improve? He's only 8 tenths quicker so far, so he might only make himself into 3rd position unless he can pull off an absolute miracle in these next couple of sectors. But it'd be a very true miracle if only for him to be able to do that. Jared Fosbury's finished qualifying as well, currently sitting in 5th. Kevin is in 6th as well, so it looks pretty solid as of right now. Luke Baker still yet to set a time, same as Sondre Sorhaug. Here comes Brandon around the final corner. How much can he improve by? He's not going to beat Edward Hart, but he can beat Laggy, and he goes into 3rd position with a 23.8, still 5 tenths behind Lewis Curtis. Could it be 2 times in a row for Brandon Glover to get unlucky and not be able to win this championship? It hasn't gone his way so far this year, and he is not in a good position right now. Edward Hart looking strong for his championship hopes right now. Lewis Curtis sitting just behind. He is the outlier, the outcast in these front 3, but still very much a possibility. And as you can see, Edward Hart 2 tenths quicker than Lewis Curtis, who retired before he could set another final flying lap in second, Brandon Glover in third as well. We got Laggy in fourth, who I have to check the name of in just a moment, which I'll do in a second. Jared Fosbury in fifth as well. Kevin Harrison 1.3 seconds behind Edward Hart, coming down right in the middle in sixth. Alfie Ollie, his teammate, in seventh, and then Connor in eighth. Luke Baker in ninth, and then Paco Suarez rounding out the top 10, joining a little bit late in qualifying to round out our top 10. Sancho Sorhaug, the final lap setter in 11th, 25 seconds behind. So, not his best qualifying, and Hamrick coming home in 12th in the end there. So, only 12 drivers, quite spaced out in terms of pace. That's what we expect really when we've only got one division. There will be some differences, unfortunately. Also just realised there's a message saying we had less than 11 when we go and we'll be racing next week, which is quite lucky because I wouldn't be available next week. So we can consider ourselves quite lucky. Also can't find the what's it called, the name for Laggy, because I can't remember. I'll have to check for you. The standings, can I do this? Watch. Genius stuff, are we ready? Where's a Williams car? Can't be Lewis. I can't find him. Oh, I don't know. Never mind, I'll just call Laggy, to be honest. But anyway, in just a moment, again, we've got no formation lap, so we're going to be going straight into this race in just about 10 seconds. It's a big one for some of these drivers. It's a big day for Aston Martin, a big day for Mercedes, and a big day for Red Bull if Jared Fosbury can pull out another miracle. But here we see the track dripped in the sunset. The 5 red lights are on. And they are gone, and we are racing after a long hold. It's going to be Edward Hart to take us away now. As you can see, Lewis getting a little bit wiggly on the rear. It's going to be Brandon trying to hold around the outside, coming to turn one. He backs outside, Lag trying to go up the inside. Kevin Harrison also making contact with the Williams there, almost spinning around, but somehow keeping it on the track. Very well done from him. Brandon still sitting in third. No real big moves happening right now. Kevin Harrison dropping down into seventh as well after that little bit of contact, a little bit of an incident. Sondre going side by side, making up one position, get past Paco off the first lap. No overtakes into the hairpin as well for the front few. It's still side by side at the back. As you can see, Sondre really flying, the Haas going out into the Mercedes, and there's a spin and a crash in his Ferrari and Mercedes going round, as it looks like somebody made a little bit of wheel banging, and there you go, Sondre and Alfie Ollie spinning around. Alfie Ollie not helping Mercedes in the championship now, but there you go, Lewis Curtis coming up the inside in front of Edward Hart. Edward Hart is not giving up just yet. There you go, Lewis Curtis goes into first position, the place he needs to be, but again, he still needs a miracle to win now. It's Brandon Glover behind Edward, coming into his next hard break. He's got the slipstream, but can't get past him now. Edward Hart still getting it right on the gearbox of Lewis, but cannot make it happen. Brandon trying to find that space on the inside, but again, cannot get close off. Lewis looking a little bit shaky on the rear. The Williams is giving Brandon some stick, trying to hold around the outside in this flat corner. That is a risky move, and it's almost impossible to pull off, but he's still going to do it. He's going to stick his nose up the inside, but backs out quite smartly, as there's no way he would have been able to keep that one. I mean, it's ballsy to try and stick his nose in there. I mean, fair play, but Brandon only half a second behind Edward. Lewis Curtis getting in front of him, allowing Brandon this opportunity, this space to try and attack his rival and just get in front, slip in front of you. He has to finish 10 points ahead of Edward in order to win this championship. So if Laggy keep up this pace and get stuck in with this fight, then maybe there is a chance. Jared Fosbury also being much quicker this season than we expected. It's Hamrick to spin around now. This time it's sector 1 in turn 3, that looks like. So down the back of the grid it looks like there's a lot of fighting, but up the front here we've just got a train and we're going to sit and wait. We're going to look at the tyres. The front four, as you can see, all sitting on the hards for the start. I imagine it's going to be a hard medium for these drivers trying to do a one stop, maybe a two stop if they really fancy it, but I highly doubt it. Jared and Connor both opting for the medium tyres, and only Luke Baker and Sondre gone for the softs, trying to make up some ground in this first little section of the race, but both of them spinning and having incidents at the start. Really, oh no, Luke Baker didn't spin, but both being quite far down the grid. Looks like it hasn't quite helped them this time. A Williams spinning around, that looks like it's Paco way down the back, spinning around, causing a yellow flag, so maybe a safety car or a virtual safety car could be very likely in this race and may play into his strategy quite a lot. And there you go, there goes the Williams as Laggy, who I was saying could be in for a fight this race, spinning around in front of Jared. Lucky that he ghosted, otherwise it could have caused an almighty incident. There you go, Connor now under pressure. It's going to be Jared to go around the outside into turn one. It's going to be hard, and he might go wide, but he sticks it somehow. Connor not keeping his nose in, playing it safe, keeping his nose clean. As there you go, it's Laggy putting into the pits. Must have got some wing damage on that incident just then. Now it's Connor behind Jared. Jared sitting in front, pulling away. It seems, except Connor looks like he was going up the inside there, but backs out again, not getting too involved, just trying to keep his car on the track for now, which is the best thing to do. Lewis Curtis 1 second ahead of Edward Hart now, already outside of the DRS detection range, but Brandon well within Edward Hart's right now. So Lewis Curtis looking like he's the fastest driver on the track at the beginning of this race. What will happen when it comes a little bit later, we'll just have to wait and see. But Kevin only 3/10 behind Luke Baker now, except we have to go back up to front as Brandon only 2/10 behind Edward. Edward seems to go a lot wide around that corner, and of course giving him a better exit, but Brandon looks like he's just trying to sneak himself up the inside there, find a little bit of an advantage through the mid corner and force Edward Hart out wide to snap up that second place. But again, this tactic of fighting with Edward is going to let Lewis get away. First position, of course, given the most points, where Brandon Glover wants to be, especially if Edward could finish in third, meaning that he would win the championship. So if he fights too much, and he's just going to cause himself more problems later on if he can't get past Lewis Curtis, and Lewis Curtis ends up 6 seconds up the road and he has no chance of coming back. That'll cause a problem. But Luke Baker already on the first penalty of this race so far, only 3 laps in. I'm not sure how he's managed that one, but it's pretty tricky. It's quite a lot of talent, but Ferrari doesn't look out of touching distance, but 1.3 seconds without any DRS is going to prove a problem. And it also means that Aston Martin, provided he can keep up Brandon Glover, is in a much better position to try and take this second place off of Edward. And that's all he can do, finish ahead of Edward and hope and see what happens for the rest of this race. So there you go, Kevin Harrison going up the inside of Luke Baker into the hairpin. Luke Baker sitting on the outside, but not really fighting too much. Kevin Harrison moving himself up into 6th position. Aston Martin still very much in the net lead of winning this Constructors title, so I don't think they'll be complaining too much. I think they'll be quite happy, in fact, with that result. At least they have some silverware to bring home, another trophy into their cabinet. Happy as you like. Edward Hart looks like he is closing in on Lewis currently though, and Brandon's still sitting behind him, eating up the tow, eating up the slipstream, just waiting on his pace to close up to the car in front. 29 laps have we got in this race, and we're about to go on to the 5th. So still a long way to go. Not even a 5th of the way through the race, but as you can see, gaps already starting to form. It's just these top 3 who are so close in this championship. Still now, all within together. The only fights on track as of right now. Everybody else 1 second away, 2 seconds away, 8 seconds away, 7 seconds away, 6 seconds away, whatever you want to say, whatever you want to do. The only bit of interest is up the front here, but again, the gaps are starting to form and nothing is really happening. We haven't got much to say at this point. We've just got to wait for the pit stops, see if there's any safety cars that decide to come out. Paco Suarez going 16 seconds behind after a couple of spins, and there you go. Speaking of, it's the AlphaTauri to go around in sector 1, and Hamrick retires from this session on track, don't forget, which is illegal. You can see his car is still moving. He's had enough of this race, leaving us with only 11 to go, so one more retirement and everybody gets to finish inside the points. And there goes Brandon Glover to fly past Edward Hart. Edward Hart just seems to go so slowly, and I take my eyes off the screen for 1 minute and Brandon Glover is through straight away, takes advantage, boom, there you go, into second he goes. Edward Hart just seemed like he let him slip past. We didn't see much difference in pace on the straight line despite DRS slipstream earlier in other laps, but this time Brandon Glover seems to get a slingshot, getting a little bit wiggly on the rear though, and here comes Edward Hart to get very close, almost eyeing up an opportunity, but again, continuing on. Business as usual, no more incidents. 2 seconds now is Lewis's gap. We'll hope these two crash and burn for him to win this championship again. Mathematically possible, but very unlikely. Edward Hart 5/10 behind, half a second, coming up into the most major DRS and slipstream overtaking opportunity on this track. There you go, Sandra getting past Luke Baker as he pulls into the pits, the first of the soft runners to do so. Sandra will be pitting very soon, but as you can see, Edward Hart cannot get close at all to Brandon down this big main straight. We're going to have a look at their ERS stocks right now. 33% for Edward and 70% for Brandon. So Brandon very much looking in the strong position right now. He's looking better tactically. Wow, what's that word? In terms of tactics, he's looking better, especially in terms of his ERS, saving that nicely, waiting for the later stage of this race. It's just going to be a waiting game, I think, to wait and see what they do with their pit stops. When do they decide to pull the trigger? Undercuts, overcuts, that's going to play a major role, I imagine. Kevin Harrison is closing in on Connor at the back there. There you go, Lewis getting the 3-second time penalty. That's not going to help him at all. And it could mean that Brandon sneaks himself up into first place, and Edward could stay in third if it stays as is almost. He just has to get a little bit more of a gap. Let's say nothing changes right now and Lewis keeps that penalty throughout the race. Even if Brandon Glover can just stay within those 3 seconds, it's 2.9 seconds. Edward Hart 2/10 behind him, Brandon wins. You must be praying for a situation like this. As there you go, Lucky also picking up a penalty. Kevin Harrison trying to find his way past Connor. Connor sitting in the middle, not giving him any opportunity, but Kevin knows that this big straight, this nice, long, open, dreary piece of track, you can just easily slip past with a bit of ERS, a bit of DRS, and a bit of slipstream, and there you go, straight line speed, almighty for him to get up into P5, easy as you like. Now, this focus will forever be, during this race, on the front three. 5/10 splits, Brandon and Edward. Both seeming very, very equal in this race. Lewis is quicker, but he hasn't got the consistency, getting himself a penalty. And there you go, a Williams car spinning around. That must be Laggy at the back, I believe. But again, the consistency of Lewis has been letting him down this season, and that could be the reason why he's not in much more of a chance to win this championship. He maybe even could have had it secured, but things happen, and never mind. But Edward, he's having to use a lot of his ERS to just try and stick with Brandon right now. Brandon is looking strong, and he's looking clever, but Lewis needs to pick up the pace for Brandon to be able to win this. It's once again Mercedes versus Aston Martin. It was the exact same last season, just a slightly different driver in the Mercedes this time. But don't forget that the other Mercedes driver is still teammates with this one. So speaking of, he gets past in the AL flag, sector 1, 2 and 3. I'm not sure why. I think it could be that Williams. It's a full safety car on lap 8. It's a full safety car, just as Brandon Glover looked like he was getting away from Edward, and it looked like he was closing in on this race lead on Lewis. A safety car comes out for no apparent reason, from what I can see, besides a spin or two. But this does change the race a little bit. Do these hard tyre runners decide to pull in now for some mediums and go for a 2-stop? What will their choice be? This benefits Andre a little bit though. Coming off those softs will be nice, and the medium runners could drop onto those hards, I believe, at this stage of the race. But it's a question of what do these 7 or 8 or so hard runners decide to do. It is 8 specifically, I had to double check myself there. But what are they going to do in terms of pit stops? No, double stacks will not be a problem for them right now. I think Kevin will be quite happy to sit behind Brandon for a while, but there you go, they all 3 decide to stay out. No changes for them. And I imagine, is it going to be, there you go, yep, Jared decides to pull the trigger. Kevin also decides to stay out this time round, as Connor a little way behind him. This does bring everybody closer together again. It brings the fighting, the action back contained, as Lewis starts to track extend anyway during that little bit, but safety car going very slow, and Lewis really having to put on the brakes to catch up. But there's still no worries. This brings everybody closer together and more ready for some exciting action, which is what we need and what we want to see. Doesn't quite benefit Brandon right now, unless Kevin Harrison, who is going to be right behind Edward on this restart, unless Kevin Harrison can make himself tricky and a nuisance, then it will be their chance. So if Kevin can, if Kevin can just get his nose in with Edward and cause himself some trouble and let Brandon just get away, or maybe with Lewis as well, and even, God forbid, get in front of him, and Brandon can very much be in a much stronger position for the later section in this race, especially when it comes to pit stops. But it all depends on how much Kevin Harrison can keep up. Can he make himself enough of a threat to Edward to throw him off enough that it benefits his teammate Brandon? That's just something we're going to have to wait and see. While I get a drink, because my throat is killing me, and it's kind of necessary. Hydration is key, kids, remember that. Okay, I've just come back and I've just seen that Lewis Curtis is pulling into the pits. I cannot tell you why, and I'm not really sure. Because he's gone for the softs here. Unless there's something that I missed, if he spun and hit the wall or something, but I can't imagine that happening, to be honest. I mean, unless Ericsson hit him or something, but like, why has he decided to pit now? That's not going to benefit him at all. He can maybe make up a few positions, but unless he gets a lucky safety car, and that is not going to be it for him whatsoever. So Brandon Glover is now in the lead of this race with Edward Hart just behind him. Now it is even more important, it is in fact vital, that Kevin Harrison can get in front of Edward and just keep him behind forever, always. Maybe even execute some team orders of Operation Crash and just T-bone him into the first corner. That is an option, but highly illegal, and will probably get a lifetime ban from the league. But besides that, he just has to get in front of Edward and keep him there. Let Brandon win this race, stay consistent, and just pull away, and Kevin pulls off an absolute defending masterclass. That's the dream for the Aston Martin team. Edward is very much in a very green sandwich. Not something you normally want, and in his case, definitely not something he wants. So we're going to have another lap under the safety car as we wait for the... That is a Williams, right? Yep. As we wait for the Williams behind to catch up and get involved, as the Ferrari of Lewis also being another car that has to catch up to the grid. But how many laps we've got to go? About 18 laps to go. As it's going to be Paco to pull into the pits as well this time, coming off of his hard tyres. Lewis, if he can keep up during this section, get past a few cars on his soft tyres, he can be up with the front runners again after the second round of pit stops. But well, first round of pit stops or some, second round for others. If he can execute these softs nicely, then be on to the mediums for the end of the race, and maybe in a good position to fight once more. But I think the one stop is still very much a stronger strategy at the moment. As you can see, Brandon warming up his tyres nicely. The hard tyres are a tricky tyre to keep happy, to be honest, in terms of warmth and grip, especially when they get worn. They are horrific. So most certainly going to be a snap. What? Most certainly going to be a task. Well, it's pretty difficult, you know. English is a weird, hard language. But yeah, I think Edward Hart definitely in the weaker position now after Lewis Curtis has kind of put him in a vice, is a term I'll use. Maybe there's some team orders going on for Lewis Curtis as well to try and benefit Brandon. I'm sure they're in a party together. I'm not sure if Edward Hart's going to be involved in that one too, but it's down to Kevin, I think. Kevin is a man who's been under pressure before And we'll do it again. If you can just get in front of Edward, that's all I'm saying. You just have to get in front of Edward, and it's Brandon's. But right now, it is Edward to win, so I'm going round in circles, and I'm speaking about it a lot, but it is the most important thing for them right now. It's the one thing to look out for in this race, and I'm not going to take my eyes off it, no matter what I do. 9 points separate them, and it's going to be Brandon who's going to get us underway again. We're going to stay on board with him as we see him come out of the final corner. I imagine the second he hits the exit, his foot is going to be down, and that's exactly what it is. He gets a very, very good pull away. Kevin Harrison still a little bit behind. As you can see, the front three already past that. Edward going very, very wide indeed. Track extending, almighty. Kevin Harrison only 3/10 behind him now. People at the back, it's going to be laggy. Make a little bit of contact with Sancho at the back. I'm sure there's going to be a spin for them there. But I want to keep an eye on these front threes. There you go. The Williams going up the inside of the Haas and the Ferrari. Oh, both Ferrari-powered cars under a lot of pressure from Luke Baker back there. Connor getting overtaken. Paco dropping down the order as well. As you can see, Ferrari, Williams and Alpine all having a moment down the back of the grid. And Kevin Harrison 2/10 away from Edward. Can he dive up the inside? Doesn't look like it this time. Brandon still in front. Kevin Harrison all over the back of Edward, putting him under pressure, just trying to throw him off wherever he can. At the back there, you can see Lewis Curtis having a good start on his softs, trying to get past this other Mercedes car. There you go. Alfieri is under pressure. On the inside is going to be Lewis Curtis. Surely he makes this move stick. He's almost got his full car ahead coming into the corner, and there you go. Alfieri lets that one happen, lets him slip up the inside. Jared Fosbury still holding on to his top four, however. He's in the fight. He is not he's an underdog of sorts, but he has been up there this season. He's doing quite well for himself. Of course, the Red Bull team sitting with a mathematical chance of, actually no, it would be a mathematical chance if both drivers were here to win the Constructors, but unfortunately they are not, so it is impossible at the end of the day. And Brandon Glover 6/10 ahead of Edward now. He is the quicker driver, and yellow flag sector 1, 2 and 3 again. It's another safety car. We've just been racing, man. It has literally been a lap. One singular lap and we've got a safety car. That's just annoying. I can't hide my frustration. That is just annoying. I haven't got much more to say. There's only so much a man can say. Sandra gets a 5-second time penalty for speeding in the pit lane, which is a bit silly, as all three of those drivers who had that incident pull into the pits and get themselves a second chance and get themselves back into this race. But oh my god, that's a voice crack. In other news, surely this means the hard runners are going to pull into the pits for some mediums now. Just try and stretch them to the end. We've got 16 laps to go. Surely you could pull the mediums through about 12 to 15 laps. I am confident. 13 to 15 we'll go. I'm confident they can do that. I'm adamant, in fact, that these drivers are talented enough and skillful enough to just grip those tyres to the end. So surely Brandon's going to pull the trigger and pull into the pits. Again, this does throw off their tactics, so if he does that as Kevin, if he's putting Edward under pressure, could be able to just get in front and sit in front. But does he pull into the pits? There you go, all three of them do. Kevin's going to go for the double stack, that's what I was about to get to. Does he double stack and hurt himself and drop down the order in order for the better strategy? I think it's probably the right call at the end of the day. It just depends if Edward's going to get jumped as he tries to come out of the pits. We're going to try and keep an eye on that, as some people do decide to stay out, being Jared and Connor, being two of them, as they've only just pissed onto their hard tyres, to be fair. Kevin still in the pits, however, getting, yeah, of course, because he double stacked. Braden stays in front, Lickle, Edward in fourth still, Lewis Curtis coming out of the pits behind them as well. So there you go, Lewis Curtis getting back in front of Kevin Harrison, meaning that he is now in net P3 as of right now, depending if Jared and Connor can keep them all behind, which I do doubt, especially as the fresh mediums against slightly worn hards are going to be an issue, as of course mediums are much quicker, and the races and stats and history will show that the three behind are much quicker. So if Lewis, let's say that all three of them get in front of these two. Now, if Lewis gets in front of Edward and stays there, and Brandon stays in front of him, Brandon wins the championship. If it's the way it is right now, Edward Hart has to drop down the order for Brandon to win. Truly, truly drop, I think, down to about 7th or 8th, roughly. As long as there's 10 points between them, then it's Brandon's. Of course, fastest lap will determine this race as well. It can do, depending on who gets it. But honestly, it still remains relatively irrelevant, and I have no idea who has fastest lap as of right now. And again, this second safety car is very annoying because it changes a little bit, but overall, not very much. I've just realised now that Kevin has gone onto a soft though, so I think Kevin is looking to just keep up with Lewis and Edward in front of him and make himself known, make his presence known, and make sure that he can build that gap for Brandon. Kevin is the ultimate teammate, or ultimate team player when it comes to him being, in this case, the second driver. He's the man you want in your team because he will serve you no end in order for you to get that win. So, honestly, Brandon could still be in a good position here. Of course he is in front, but that doesn't mean that he can't be under pressure during this race as well. Just crossing the halfway mark now. It's all to play for still in the second half of the race. Got no safety cars, and hopefully it could be quite interesting. But it's going to be Jared to take us away, probably at the end of the next lap, depending if these Alpine, Ferrari, Williams can catch up, which I think they might be able to. I kind of doubt those. It's a bit sticky. So we either get racing now or we wait one more lap. But we'll just have to see. Jared has been one of the quicker drivers this season, but I still think that he's not quite there to be able to fight the drivers behind him. Connor as well can be quick on his day, but won't be able to put up too much of a fight and might just get himself taken. I mean, maybe one of these two will decide to fight well and truly tooth and nail and cause a crash, but fingers crossed that doesn't happen. It could be very dramatic and it might cause me to scream, but it's not something I'm going to wish, because that would be truly heartbreaking for drivers, and it's not the side-by-side to the line that we all want and all imagine and all dream of. In fact, because nothing is more satisfying than a true photo finish. And I can stand by that, because last season, that's exactly what we got between Alfieri and Brandon Glover. So, if Brandon can prove us some excitement 2 years in a row, 2 games in a row, 2 seasons in a row, then that'll be absolutely fantastic, and I will not complain, and I'll be a very, 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 very happy man. Again. One more lap into his safety car as Paco wasn't able to catch up quite fast enough as he pulls into the pits again, coming off those hard tyres, meaning only 2 drivers will be left on those absolute stones. Horrible, horrible little things to drive on. So, luckily for him, he pulls onto the softs, which are going to feel like a dream for about 3 laps until they become a gluttonous, gloopy, tragic, worn-out mess. Especially here in the desert where temperatures are hot, but luckily we're going to be transitioning into the night time quite soon. It gets darker and darker. The nice sunset glow is being removed and the sun is almost down. And very nearly there. But I've pretty much said everything I can say. We're going to have about half a lap left to go on this safety car, and then we are going to be getting back into racing. And hopefully it's going to be some good racing without another safety car. Just side by side for 13 laps. For the rest of my cat's meowing at me, but I cannot leave. Gingle, go away. Sorry. Can also ignore that little slurp. Drinking J2L out of a can. Can be quite a task, apparently. But in other news, it's safety car in this lap, and it's going to be Jared Fosbury to take us away to what is hopefully the true final section to this race there. To draw us into a close. We're past the 50% mark, and hopefully no more disturbances. Just good racing. That's all I hope for. He's not a man that we've seen right at the front so far. Everybody's got a new ERS replenishment. Don't forget Number 62, not a very common number that you see. But anyway, it's going to be Jared right on the exit of this corner. I imagine his foot is going to be down. There you go. There he is. And the ERS is open and taps are open. And here comes the Mercedes already on Brandon. Brandon has not got a good start at all. It's going to be Edwards trying to go up the inside. Doesn't make it happen this time, though. We couldn't stick his nose in. It's Kevin Harrison on the softs as well. He's going to have to wait a few corners for those to really kick in so he can make any overtakes that he needs to. Sondre dropping behind Paco as well with the back. It's going to be Edward Hart still close to Brandon, however. Trying to go around the outside into the hairpin. He's really going for it. He could have a good exit, but I still think it's not quite going to be it. Brandon has to clear these cars ahead of him for him to have any chance at all. Kevin also has to get in front. There you go, Brandon. He's going to be going up the inside into the hairpin, into this hard braking zone. Edward also going to try and capitalise on this. I imagine the Williams going out wide. Brandon gets in front. Edward Hart trying to go around the outside. Can he do it? And Collins just gets overtaken as well. Edward taking perfect opportunity of that, and in fact get in front of Brandon as well. Don't know what happened to Brandon, but Brandon is out behind, and Edward Hart goes up into second place, and Jared Fosbury still winning this race. Sitting pretty is going to be the next target for these two. Brandon's got to fight tooth and nail. He has to get back in front. He must do. It is vital. It is necessary. It is what he needs. With 12 laps left to go, he is now back behind Edward and staring into that Ineos sponsorship once more. Brandon Glover, I'm not sure what happened to him though, because he shouldn't have been overtaken there. I think he must have just stepped out on the rear. We've seen him do it a couple of times during qualifying and during this race, so I think Brandon Glover just not quite able to keep that rear intact, and now we're going to be under pressure from Lewis Curtis behind him. He's all over his gearbox. He hasn't got quite the straight line speed on, not quite the exit, but coming to the first corner, it looks like through corners, Lewis is looking strong, and he's going to put Brandon under a good amount of pressure as Edward is just pulling away and getting closer and closer to Jared. There you go, another 5-second penalty for Sondre. Sondre not doing well for himself. And there you go, Lewis flying up the inside, late on the brakes, and makes it happen. And Edward only 2 tenths away from Jared as well. And I imagine he's going to go straight back into the lead of this race as easy as he like. Jared can do not much about that, and Brandon, can he get his revenge on Lewis Curtis? It's all going to be side by side up the front actually though. Jared's going to try and swing around the outside, maybe. No, there you go, Edward is in front. Brandon can't make any overtakes this time. Lackey getting overtaken by, oh no, actually Paco having a moment as well, getting himself overtaken by Lackey once more. Now it's going to be Lewis Curtis to try and get past Jared Fosbury, except Jared Fosbury has not given up on his hard tires. He's going to try and swing around the outside if he can, but there you go, Lewis again late on the brakes. He is finding every single gap he can. So right now, I mean, he saw him do it to Brandon. He's trying to do it to Jared as well. Jared couldn't make that move as well, especially he's got this big red and black Ferrari looming in his mirrors and not giving him any chance to breathe. Lewis still wants this championship and he wants this race win. He's going to do everything in his power to make that happen. Kevin getting a 3-second time penalty, not going to help his case or Brandon's at all, but luckily for him, the constructor still looks very strong. And there you go, Lewis Curtis pulling over to the inside, coming to turn one. So surely Jared can't keep this. Surely not, trying to swing around the outside. Still Lewis getting a little bit wiggly on the rear, just forcing Jared out. It was a bit close to do that. Could have held his line, but there you go, keeps it. Jared dragging his car through turn 3. Didn't quite look so, but looks like a lot. There you go, Jared going up the inside of Lewis, coming into the hairpin. Lewis still holds around the outside. It's all going to be down to the exit now. DRS is enabled, don't forget, so Brandon can still get involved. It's going to be Lewis who stays in front now. Jared, he's very, very vulnerable. It looks like he has not got the DRS this time, and now it's Brandon trying to get close to Lewis. He's close enough, but is he able to get it on the brakes? No, he doesn't. Lewis looks so much stronger on the brakes right now. He's just slamming them on and staying in front as of right now. Now, Lewis won't have DRS. Brandon does. 1.6 seconds splits him, Lewis and Edward, and here comes Kevin Harrison on Alfioli, another Aston Martin on another Mercedes, trying to hold around the outside is Kevin Harrison. He's still holding his nose in the soft tyres, hopefully going to grip up a little bit sooner than those mediums, trying to find any way around he can, but unfortunately cannot squeeze himself through right now. 10 laps to go. Very much in the final section of the race now. This will go by in a flash, I am sure. Hearts are going to be in the mouths for the drivers. As long as Edward Hart keeps it on the track right now, he looks like he's very happy and strong. He's 2 seconds ahead of his rival. There you go. Alfioli going out very wide, and Kevin Harrison getting in front, but Alfioli's going to fight back now. Kevin has to be on the inside. He's in the much better line, the place that you want to be, and he gets back in front. He has to accept the switch back from Alfioli. He does it! Oh, lovely move into turn 2. There you go. Kevin Harrison, however, still right behind him. And now coming into the hairpin, I'm sure he's going to absolutely fly up the inside. Alfioli making his car massive, just swinging from side to side along the track. But there you go. DRS Deception is going to be Kevin's best friends right now, as Brandon is in second, as Lewis Curtis actually spun. When that happen? I completely missed it. I was so sidetracked. Brandon is out in second place, 2 seconds behind his championship rival. He's got a lot of ground to make up, but now still side by side. Alfie on the inside, Aston Martin, number 7, Kevin, round the outside, on the inside for the second corner. Doesn't make it happen. A little bit of a bunk from the Williams behind him. Laggy giving a push, giving a slightly better exit, hopefully. And now he's on to try and catch Alfie again. He's got almost no ERS. Alfie hasn't got much, but still more than Kevin. Kevin and his soft tyres are going to start wearing out now, and it's soon going to be time for him to pit. I'm not sure he's going to be able to keep this up, as you can see, Laggy with all this fighting, he is really caught up. And Kevin almost going up the rear of Alfioli as well, and here comes Laggy to try and take advantage of that. Kevin Harrison starting to go slow as his tyres are wearing, and it's getting harder and harder for him. There you go, Laggy on the exit, he's going to be on the inside. Kevin Harrison, can he hold it? Doesn't look like it at all. He's got to be on the inside though, as Laggy goes wide on the inside into the final corner. It's all about the exit now, coming into turn 1. Kevin Harrison looks like he's just about got a better exit, but he's going to be on the outside, the harder line this time. It's going to be tricky, but he's going to try and do it still. Laggy on the inside, Kevin Harrison gone wide, couldn't make it happen for himself, and drops down into P5. I think the soft tyres have just worn out now, and it looks like it's a bad day for Aston Martin, as Brandon is not catching up to Edward at the front. 2.2 seconds. I'm not sure much will change. It's going to take a miracle. Like I said, Brandon has to do everything he can. He needs to pick up the pace now, try and get close to Edward. Anything he can do. But the Mercedes team looking strong, looking hearty, but it's still Aston Martin who will come out on top on the constructors as of right now. Oh, Laggy having a big snap of the rear, almost going into the second pit lane, and that was going to be Kevin Harrison just driving, pushing, and here comes Lewis Curtis actually. He's making 2 positions on the straight from out of nowhere. Comes to Ferrari, and snap of the rear too. Kevin Harrison, he's going to try and get on the back of that, but Lewis Curtis out of nowhere comes flying through, takes 2 positions. Laggy still fighting Kevin, trying to find that 5th position. Lewis Curtis jumping into P4. Catching up during the fighting, and just out of nowhere, like a ninja, comes in and takes P4. Now trying to look for that podium once again. It's going to be the Mercedes of Alfioli. I doubt he's going to be able to catch the front 2, but Alfioli could be within his reach, despite, although he does have penalties, but that's a little bit less exciting and doesn't fit in the narrative, so I'm going to completely ignore it, to be honest. But these three providing our excitement today. Paco and Sandro both retired. As you can see, Lewis spins again. He's just got in front, just made a fantastic move to get up into P4, and could be looking for a podium finally, and spins. This is one of the reasons this season that I think Lewis hasn't been able to win this championship. It's going to be Laggy though. We're going to come back to that. Laggy, he pulls over to the inside. As you can see, Kevin just holds his line, tries to stay with him, but unfortunately there's nothing you could do when you got DRS. You got Sipshin behind, except you can get him on the exit, as Kevin almost did, and now has DRS for this next straight, and could come straight back at him and make Laggy's lead short-lived. Although Laggy looks very, very quick on the straight though, I can't lie. Just seemed to pull away from Kevin despite Kevin's DRS restriction, so I imagine he probably activated himself a bit of that old ERS. And Lewis now only a 10th away from Luke Baker, flying up the inside. Once again, late on the brakes. Lewis, high risk, high reward in this race, and right now hasn't got much reward despite getting a little bit too close to the edges of the track and looking a different direction to what he normally would. Kevin, 4 tenths away. Now, I said his meters were going off. Now, hang on a second, Brandon's got in front of Edward. Why are things happening when I'm not seeing them? I have no idea how that's happened, but there you go, Edward Hart dropping down in second, and Brandon Glover up into first. Another thing I've missed so much. I get distracted by one thing and I miss out on another. I've no idea what's happened, but Edward Hart just dropping further back. Yes, he's still in position to win, and he's got his teammate behind, so I don't think he has to worry too much about being overtaken, losing on the championship. But he's not doing himself any favours. I'm not sure what's happened there, but Edward Hart looks like he's going very, very slowly, just letting off the throttle as well. I don't know why. It seems very, very strange. as he falls closer and closer into the clutches of his teammate behind. But again, it's his teammate, you shouldn't be overtaking him. Unless he's gifting Brandon the championship, but why would you do that? That's no fun. 2.5 seconds now is between them, and oh, big slap of the rear as well. Maybe that's why he's letting off. Oh, and he spun! Edward Hart's round! It's going to be Alfioli to overtake him, and now Brandon Glover is in position, but surely Alfioli lets Edward back through. Only 6 laps to go, and Edward Hart with his hot tyres as well going to do himself no favours. We saw that one, we saw it this time. And now the gap is big, it's just down to Brandon Glover to keep it on the track. Edward Hart making mistakes and not looking strong right now. Kevin Harrison has to get his head in the game. Laggy going off into the wall as well. Kevin Harrison is in 4th place, he has to catch up except his tyres are so old, there's no chance, there's no way. Edward Hart has to close in. Alfioli just sitting in front of him, 8/10 away. He has to get close, he has to get closer. He must do 5 laps left to go. Suddenly, very suddenly, it has got very intense right now. Edward Hart is the quicker driver to Alfioli, we know that, we've seen it. Just can Edward keep it on the track? One more spin and he could get overtaken by Jared or Kevin. Connor getting himself a 3-second time penalty as well, but that doesn't matter so much right now. Edward is getting closer to Ollie now, he's starting to catch up. Once his tyres have cooled down a little bit, he is getting closer. Surely he can make his move within these next 5 or so laps, 5.5 we'll say. But Brendan, 8 seconds ahead, very suddenly looking good. There you go, Lewis Curtis getting in front of Jared Fosbury as well at the back here. Easy as you like for him, another position made, another nice overtake from him, but can he keep his car on the track? I was saying earlier that I think one of the reasons why he hasn't been able to fight and be up truly in this championship fight is because of his consistency so far this season. We've seen him spin plenty of times, but unfortunately, he hasn't been able to keep it all together so far this season. 7.5 tenths is Edward to his teammate. He seems to only be catching a little bit, but it's only that little bit more time gained is what's going to help him out during this race. Maybe Alfie's just giving him a tow to keep him in front, or maybe there's just no communication at all. I know these two are good mates. They've been commentator. They've had a commentator pairing in PSGL before. In fact, on divisions I've raced in, so I know these two do communicate, they are friends. Just can they stay friends on track? There you go, Alfioli pulls up to the inside and it's going to be Edward Hart to go back into the net lead of this championship. Let's just, can he keep the car on the track for the rest? We've seen that he's getting a little bit shaky on the rear. There you go, Lewis Curtis getting in front of Kevin. Kevin's tyres are blistering, you can see it. That line locking up as well, you can see the difference in wear on his tyres. They are not looking happy. Alfioli now getting close to Edward, but he's just going to sit behind, not even full throttle, not trying to make that move as he should, as a good teammate does. Now Jared is going to be behind Kevin Harrison. Can he make that move? It's a big gap for Lewis to make up on these front few drivers, unless he puts his foot down and does something incredible. There's no way he's catching up now. We've only got about 4 laps to go once Brandon crosses the line. Brandon's doing everything he can right now. He's quicker, he is in the lead, but it just depends. Can Edward keep his car on the track? He's had a couple of spins, he's had himself a moment. Just does he have another one? Is the question. His tyres will be a little bit more worn. Of course, the heat will have worn down now. That's fine. And there you go, Kevin just under so much more pressure as the old hard tyres coming against the old soft tyres. Which one would you prefer? I prefer the old hard tyres. Now, as you can see, Kevin just has to let him through, going wide. His tyres have finished, he has to pull into the pits, there's nothing more he can do. He's done everything he can this race, he can't help his teammate from there, it's just pull into the pits and go on to another pair, surely. Unless he sticks it out to the end and pulls off a masterclass, but it's just not worth it. He's looking slow and he's not looking happy. Alfioli's just sticking with his teammate nicely though. 6.5 seconds separates Lewis and Alfioli. Only 3 laps to go, about, well, 3.5 we'll say. 6.5 seconds in 3 laps I think is very unlikely. As you can see, Laggy retires from this session as well. Looks like he's in the pits, however. That's no fun. Only 8 drivers are left in this race, which is not something we like to see. We're on a full 20 that we started with at the beginning of the season. Numbers slowly dwindling as people realise they have no chance of a championship and have no more motivation. But Lewis looking so much quicker, of course, but 2 seconds a lap, not very likely at all. It's just down to Edward keeping his car on the track. I keep saying there's only 8 drivers, so not much fighting going on. It's only Mercedes drivers together. They're not going to be going for anything. Let's be honest, as you can see, the other Williams of Connor going nice and slow in front. Oh, where's his car gone? What's happened there? Where'd he go? Okay, never mind. Yeah, even though it's only these 2 Mercedes cars together on the track, it means that we're going to have no real fighting, and it's just going to be a procession to the end, unless somebody decides to crash and burn. That's all we have to wait for. Brandon's done everything he can. Edward's doing everything he can. And he's got his teammate behind him, so he's in a secure and happy position. And looks like, it seems as though, he will be taking the title. As it looks right now, as you can see, Alfioli's just getting close to his teammate, but not going full throttle. He doesn't want to fight him. Of course, that's not what you want. They've done everything they can for the constructors, but again, it's not a 35-point gap when all the points are added up, so it's not going to be Mercedes' day to win this championship. I don't believe, unless I've made a vast miscalculation with my mathematics here. They need 35 points to be able to win the Constructors' Championship. And a first and a 6th isn't going to allow that, as Alfioli gets a 3-second time penalty, which makes absolutely no difference, really, in this race at all. So all eyes on Edward Hart to keep their car on the track. Maybe I'm just trying to put in some pressure here. Maybe he's listening to me. We'll have to see. But Kevin Harrison now under pressure from Luke Baker. His tyres they must be feeling gopping. They must be awful. But here comes Luke Baker trying to slip up the inside, but backs out a little bit. Kevin Harrison does not look quick or happy. Those tyres are finished. Luke Baker's what? Just backed out of the move for no real reason. He's so much quicker, but he's just not going for it for whatever reason. Now he's going to try and go around the outside into the hairpin. Maybe he's just trying to hold on to this DRS onto a straight. Kevin's sticking his nose on the inside. A little bit of contact maybe, but not enough to send any cars this or that way. Kevin not looking happy. Wiggling slightly down the straight, but has he got a puncture? He does have a puncture, I think. Can we see? Does he? Or am I being insane? But he's looking very, very, very shaky going down a straight, and it's a bit odd. It's as though he's got a puncture. I can't actually see it, but I believe one of his, I want to say the rear right, has got a puncture. He's gone very, very slowly. I said that the tyres wouldn't be able to make it, and I think I may be right. But I can't actually see the damage. There you go. Yeah, it is the back right. Kevin Harrison, oh, spinning away. That's not going to bring out any safety cars in this section of the race either, so it's not too interesting. But Kevin, I said that his tyres wouldn't be able to make it to the end, and I was right, as Lewis gets in front of Alfioli, actually. Alfioli having a bit of a mistake, and only 3 seconds separates Lewis and Edward, but can he make up 4 seconds in one lap, plus penalties? I doubt it, so again, it's Edward Hart looking nice. Lewis Curtis, it's going to be our front 3 of the championship to finish in the top 3 right now, as provided everything stays the same. Poor Kevin having a moment right at the back there, but again, it's still Aston Martin's Constructors' Championship to win. Happy days for them all. Alfioli going to try and come back on Lewis though, maybe if he can. He's got the DRS, he's got the ERS, and he's going to fly up the inside, easy as you like, and Lewis Curtis just has to say thank you. And he actually tries to go round the outside if he could. Edward Hart keeps on. I saw the yellow flying and I got excited. Yeah, Brendan Glover 11.5 seconds ahead of Edward right now, but in all honesty, even with a spin, Edward could stay in front, quite simply. It's all been about consistency so far this race. Brendan's done everything, still side by side though with Lewis Curtis and Alfioli at the back. I'm trying to keep an eye on the front in case I miss something again, but the ERS is pretty much gone. They're on their absolute last legs. They're still fighting all the way to the end. Brendan Glover comes across the line now, and I might have to give up on this fight, as it's going to be Edward Hart to come around the final corner to win the IRL Season 13 F1 Championship. It's Edward Hart to take the trophy home. Kept his head together despite his spin, got back in front of his teammate and wins the championship. Easy as you like. Alfioli finishing in front of Lewis Curtis as well, rounding out the podium. A nice day for Mercedes. A very happy day for both drivers. Unfortunately didn't win the Constructors' Championship, but I'm sure Edward doesn't care, because he has got his own personal glory as Luke Baker spins, come around the final corner. Connor way behind as well, when Kevin Harrison with his nice old puncture, as you can see, not looking happy and not looking fun. Brandon, he's done everything he could. He's won the final race of the season, but he's just one position shy for Edward Hart, who spun out of the lead of this race. We missed a spin. Brandon gets back in front and wins by 12.5 seconds, but overall in this championship, it's going to be Edward Hart to come home with the title for, I believe, the first time. Not quite the dramatic conclusion that we got last season, but either way, still very, very interesting. Brandon Glover, in crucial sections of the season, wasn't able to keep it together. We saw it at Monza, and I can't remember, I believe it was Japan, when Edward wasn't here. He just had a couple of incidents, finished 9th, out of the points, anything like that. Those small moments stopping him from winning this championship. In just one of those races, had he finished higher up, it would have been his. But unfortunately, this is racing, and we can't always have it our way. And it's Edward Hart, in the end, to come out well and truly. It's another puncture for Kevin, all on the right-hand side of his car. And I want to round this out, but we have to wait for this man to get through these final few corners. There you go, one more to go for Kevin, with this absolute tragedy of a car. It goes flying off, just about keeping it outside of the wall. And there you go, it's going to be Kevin Harrison. Oh, gets clattered by Red Bull as well, just to make up for it, just to seal the end of his race. Isn't this fun to see? There's a couple of little dons and drifts across the line. It's Kevin Harrison to come home in 8th and win the Constructors' title for Aston Martin. So there is still some saving grace for Brandon, but I'm sure he's still gutted that 2 seasons in a row he hasn't been able to win the championship and loses out in Abu Dhabi again. A cursed circuit for him, but he has to come back stronger next season and make the most of every single race and try and put his name in for the title contention again. 3rd time lucky is what they say, and it could be that way for Brandon as you see him walk out onto the podium for one final time this season. He'll celebrate the win, he'll be happy with that. He did all he could, but unfortunately it isn't always enough. That's just how it goes. So it's Brandon to win this race, unfortunately missing out on the title. Edward Hart to come 2nd, winning the title. Alfieri again doing everything he could for the sake of Mercedes, but again Aston Martin were that little bit more consistent throughout the season to pick up those few extra points. Lewis Curtis, our final championship contender again. Consistency letting him down. Brilliant from him to keep coming back, but the fact that he kept spinning also hurting himself during that period. Jared Frosbury coming home in 5th. A great season from him. A vast improvement from last game, and hopefully he's going to try and carry that momentum coming into next season. Maybe if he teams up with Cameron Young again, they could be in for a fight for the Constructors, depending on what happens. Luke Bakey coming home in 6th, Connor in 7th, Kevin Harrison being the last of our finishers in 8th, Laggy down in 9th, Paco Suarez in 10th, Sondre Sorhaugen in 11th, and Hamrick in 12th, all being our retirements so far today. Anyway, this is the end of the season. It's been an absolute pleasure commentating this season. I hope I can come back for season 14. Provided they invite me back. Yes, I missed a few races, but I'm going to try and stay consistent. But this has been IRL Season 13, Round 12 Abu Dhabi. We'll be back soon in a few weeks, hopefully, provided we get the drivers, to race again and have another great championship, hopefully going right down to the final race once more. So, thank you very much. I've been your commentator, Jack Yates. I hope to see you next season. Thank you all very much for being here. Thank you for tuning in and being invested in this season. I will see you all soon. Thank you very much. Goodbye.